Hi everybody, Paul Cameron here from speedupmyjobsearch.com, and today I'm going to show you the second old sales tactic that job seekers are still using but that doesn't work anymore, and I'm going to show you how you can reverse it so that it works even better than it ever did before. Let's get to work. Last week, we talked about how to effectively sell yourself on LinkedIn so that more employers can find you. And I even shared a free resource with you where you can search through all LinkedIn profiles, even the ones that you're not connected to, which are outside your network. And it does not matter if you've already hit your LinkedIn search limit, if you're familiar with that, if you run into that before. So if that's of interest to you, go back to our YouTube channel and look for part 1 of this video series. And at this point, let's move on to Tiedowns, which is the other sales tactic that doesn't really work like it used to. And Tiedowns really became popular in the late 90s and the 2000s. And just like I did for my cargo pants, you can make a very valid argument for keeping them and for continuing to use them. But you just can't be so obvious about it, right? You need to either use the camouflaged Tiedowns or even better, learn how to reverse these Tiedowns. And a Tiedown, just if you're not familiar, it's a series of questions that are designed to get people to say yes over and over again to small things so that then when you ask for the big thing, it will be easier for them to say yes. I mean, you've seen those before, right? But when you're blatant about it with questions like, do you want to be more profitable? Or are you looking for a project manager who can help you reduce your costs? Oh, come on, really? It's just rule of thumb here. If you could use that question at like a 2 a.m. infomercial, like, do you want to make more money? Then it's too obvious. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Do you know what I mean? Right, now the last 3 I just gave you there are also Tiedowns, which you probably noticed because I used 3 in a row, but when you just use them one at a time, they're not so obvious, right? Like they're wearing camouflage, right? Which, again, as we all learned in the last video, camouflage never goes out of style. So, in fact, if you go back to that old video, you will see that I sprinkled several Tiedowns throughout that video. And if you've noticed, both in this video and I also did this then, every time I use a Tiedown, a little piece of tied up string flashes on the screen just to the side of the logo up there, the speedupmyjobsearch.com URL above me. You'll see it flash up there next to it. And that was happening each time I used one in the previous video as well. And you know, these don't have to actually get the person to physically speak the word yes out loud. It's about gaining that agreement, even if it's just mentally, in a continuous manner throughout the conversation. So you'll see that sometimes I would just quickly say, right? And not waiting for an answer, just continuing on, but the listener is mentally aligning their thinking with me. The psychology of that is getting them to align their thoughts up with mine so that we're going to be of the same mindset here. It's easier to build rapport as we do that. You say them casually, they seem spontaneous. Granted, they were very, very planned, keep that in mind, but that's going to help us to think alike and build rapport even subconsciously, and it's easier to build trust when that happens. But there is a more advanced version of this called a reverse Tiedown, which can really help you to gain agreement even when the other person's guard is up. They're looking at you like you're about to sell them something, right? So the idea here is to start getting people to say no to the wrong alternatives, which will then open them up to moving forward with you. I mean, it's a very subtle shift, but it's very, very effective. In fact, Chriss Voss, the former FBI hostage negotiator, recently put out a book with negotiation tactics called Never Split the Difference. And in that book, he wrote about this exact same tactic. I mean, he didn't call it a reverse Tiedown specifically, but it was about getting the person to say no. He said that the research that they had done showed that by allowing someone to say no to something, it created a feeling of safety for them, which I could see would be very helpful in a hostage situation. And if you think about it, when people are saying yes to something, they're feeling like they're committing to something, but when they say no, it relaxes them and it makes them put their mind at ease. And this can really help you in an interview setting. And just to make perfectly clear that I'm not saying to hold these companies hostage in any way whatsoever, just the sales tactic here. I don't think that would help you get the job. But in an interview setting, because an employer isn't sure you're the right candidate, right? So say you can feel it. You're having this conversation. You just feel it's not going as well as it could, but you're confident it's the right fit. If you start using these affirmative tie downs, saying yes, 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 is going to make them feel uncomfortable with you, right? And uncomfortable to the idea of saying yes to hiring you. But that's when you want to make this subtle shift to the reverse tie downs, right? You can tell that it's not going perfectly. We shift over to start asking questions they're legitimate questions, but they're going to help them to say no to the idea of not hiring you. Okay, so for example, let's say you're interviewing for a job, it's a senior director role, and they need someone who can come in and help them set long-term strategy for them. Okay, so your conversation could go like this. She's like, well, with my current company, my primary focus is primarily on setting long-term strategic direction for them, like we've been talking about. But from what you've described here, and time out for just a second, this is where you want to give them a brief one-sentence recap so that they know you can see the situation from their perspective, all right? And you understand fully what they need. And that's going to, when you do that, improve your credibility with them, that you get it, you see where they're coming from, okay? So we throw this right in the middle. So from what you've described here, you have a substantial implementation project coming up. Wouldn't it be better to look for more of a project manager to run that instead of a senior director? Now, before you cringe at the thought of trying to talk them out of hiring you, think about this for a second. They wouldn't be holding an interview for a senior director position if they really only needed a PM, right? So by asking this question, which is a logical question given the situation, they're going to feel compelled to start defending their actions, right? And they're going to say, no, we are looking for a senior director who can help us with long-term strategic direction, but it's really important to us that we find someone who can, right? And now they're going to be very likely to start explaining why they were thinking you might not be the right fit, okay? And now you can address those concerns directly in the interview, right? Instead of trying to explain yourself in a thank you note after the interview's over and after they've already decided you're not the right person for the job. Does that make sense? So, and I'll tell you, the biggest killer of salespeople, rule number one in sales, you cannot overcome an objection you do not get. But this reverse tie down can help them to feel more comfortable, to share their objections on where their concerns are with you, so that then you can talk about them while you're there. And if they are still not sure about you and your ability to do this job, but you are very sure that you can do it, there's one more reverse tie down that you can use if you're comfortable with it. All right, you can close the interview by saying something like, well, would it be a crazy idea if you were to just try me out for a week, right? It can be on a non-paid contract basis, and if I can do what I'm saying that I can do, just include that week on my first check, right? But if I can't do it, I'm going to be upfront with you. I will come to you and I'll let you know. I mean, I'm not going to force a bad fit here just to get a job. I'm looking for a right fit for me too. I feel strongly that this would be a good fit for both of us. So would that be too far outside the box or completely unreasonable to try something like that? Now, if you can get them to say no to that, you're hired. Again, I'm Paul Cameron, and if you need help with your job search, please check out speedupmyjobsearch.com, where I do job search coaching online for professionals at all levels, and I also offer one-on-one coaching for people looking for leadership positions and executive positions. I've got dozens of comprehensive job search training videos in there so you can learn at your own pace, and e-courses throughout the site as well. Selling yourself during an interview doesn't have to be that difficult, right? It can be easy once you understand the concepts. You know what I mean? You can do this. Now, it's time to get to work.